Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and as of recording this, we're about a week away from the beta launch of the Gundam card game. It's happening at the European Card Fest this next weekend, and then also there will be kind of a North American launch at the Bandai Card Fest in Florida during the first week of January as well. But I'm really excited for it. I've been playing a lot of games with like the 30 or so cards that we've already had revealed, but having the full 50 revealed is going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to seeing a structured card pool for this game, and just to play a lot more games. I've been having a lot of fun, and I know a lot of you guys are interested in playing this card game as well, which is why I wanted to make this video in the first place. So it's going to be kind of also based on them updating their website with the kind of how to play stuff. They have the play sheet as well as the comprehensive rules, which you can find linked in the description. We're going to go kind of over both of these as well, and then some example deck list at the end, which is kind of based off the ones that they have in the play sheet. But in general, I want this video just be really accessible for people who wanted to learn this card game pretty quickly and kind of just get some questions and stuff too. So if you guys have any questions about how this game works or anything, please let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to do that as well. And then also, if you guys want some resources for decks in general, I do have my website, Eggman Events, which is linked in the description as well. This page, as of recording, is a little bit out of date because I wanted to wait until we get the full beta card list to kind of update some of these builds. But this will have all of my builds if you guys want to see some deck lists and what they look like, and also just some examples of what to build. You can check that out there. And the decks can also be printed as proxies, which you can find here. So just press the gear, press the proxy button, and you will get a printable PDF. So I know not everyone's going to be able to get the beta stuff right at release, but they do want to play. So I do want to kind of offer that for anyone who has that as well. So if you have any questions on that or need any help, let me know. All of these resources will be linked in the description as well. And let's do the quick start guide real quick. All right, starting with the quick start guide for you guys. This is based off the play sheet, and as far as I know, this is pretty much what they're going to be using for demo stuff anyways. This is kind of like the play sheet front side. We'll have the back side here, which kind of has the rules of the game. If you guys have done a Bandai demo before, this looks pretty similar for it. This page also has some recommended decks, which we'll kind of go over at the end of this video. We don't have all the cards that they mention in these deck lists right now available to us, but I also don't think that these are really great. I think they're just kind of good, like first, like test out the game deck list, but I'll have my own kind of interpretations of these with our current card pool at the end as well. And then we also do kind of have these additional rules for 3 or more players. I'm personally not interested in it, so I'm not going to be talking about it, but you guys can check that out in your own way. But I do want to kind of go over just the basics. So if you guys haven't played this game before, this is going to be a crash course just talking about it real quick. And then also, if you guys want more of the comprehensive rules, I'll have that as the next section so you can check out the timestamp. But generally, this is the play area for this game. We do have a lot of kind of similarities to other Bandai card games, but there are some unique things. We do have a 50 card deck, which is exactly 50. We have this battle area, which can hold up to 6 units. So it's any unit. So that's a Gundam or any kind of mobile suit. Those are the unit cards that we have, and we can have up to 6 to here. We have our resource area, which is pretty similar to like the Dawn area for One Piece. We have a resource deck, which has 10 of our resources. We get 1 a turn, and then also we have these EX resources, which are like the energy marker from Fusion World. These are resources that you can use once, but they do contribute towards your level of a card. So if you have 2 regular resources and an EX resource, you are currently level 3, so you can play a 2 cost out with the 2 regular resources there as well. And then like most other Bandai card games, we do have life in the sense of cards. So we do have 6 cards from the top of our deck added to our shield area. Then we have a base, which is essentially a way to protect cards in our shield area, which we'll talk about in a little bit. If you want to play a new base, you can just take away the old base and play the new one, which is really handy. And then we do lose the game when we're at 0 shields and we take 1 more damage kind of idea. So pretty basic card area and nothing too complex. And from the continuation from here, we do have the preparing to play. So 50 card deck exactly. Choose who goes first. You draw a 5 card hand from your 50. If you don't like it, the mulligan system is put all 5 of the cards to the bottom of your deck, draw a new 5 without any shuffling, and then after you draw your new 5, shuffle the deck afterwards, and then place 6 cards from the top of your deck into your life. So it's kind of like how it is for Union Arena. You do get a full mulligan, but you do get the guarantee that you won't draw any of the cards that you put to the bottom of your deck, but you can see them again because you do shuffle afterwards. So pretty helpful there. Again, 6 cards into your shield area. You get an EX shield as well. Sorry, EX base in your shield area too. So this is a 3 health shield, which will be your first base of the game. If you do want to, again, get rid of it, you can just place another one on top of it and put it in your trash. And then lastly, if you are going second, you get an EX resource token, which we've talked about previously. So that's kind of the setup for it. And then from there, if you want to know the kind of turn progression for this game, we kind of refresh everything. So that's dawn, units, everything from our board. We get to draw one, and you do get to draw one if you are the first player on your first turn, which is not standard for most Bandai card games. So I do kind of want to mention it here. You get to draw every turn. So that's first, going second, whatever. You do get a draw there, which is really helpful for this game. And then you get one resource during your resource phase, which is, again, kind of like One Piece, but it's just one every turn instead of the 1, 2, 2, 2, 2 continuation. So that does kind of just set the pace of what the game is. And I think that is pretty fine with how the game works with the level system too. So, and then we have the main phase. And if you're familiar with Bandai card games, it's pretty similar to their main phases in most games outside of Union Arena and BSS. So we get to just do whatever we want in whatever order that we want. We can play a card, we can attack with something, we can, play another card, we can do some actions, whatever order we really want to do, which is really nice. I really am accustomed to that. And whenever there's a card game that doesn't have that system, I always get like a little bit confused on my sequencing at times. But everything can attack the turn they are played, but you do get to pair your pilots, and if it is a link unit, you can attack the turn they are deployed, so that is important for that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We can activate these main abilities, and then we have our attack phase here. So the attack phase is a little bit closer to Fusion World than it is to One Piece. We have the attack step, so you get to choose what your target is. You can only choose a rested unit or your opponent's shield area. There might be some kind of differences from there, like some units get to attack active things, but generically it has to be something that's rested, or again the shields. And then there's the block step from your opponent. If they have something with blocker, they can activate it. And then we have the action step, which we'll talk about this more in the comprehensive stuff, but most stuff in the early kind of beta stuff doesn't even have the actions. But essentially, if you have the resources available and you want to activate a card that says an action timing from your hand, you're able to use it during the step. So if you are not the turn player, you get to activate one first. Your opponent then gets to respond with it, and you go back and forth until no one wants to do anything. So lastly, there's the damage step, and this is probably the biggest difference from most other Bandai card games, is that we do have this passive damage in the sense that we take damage and we get to keep it. So I kind of relate it to more like Hearthstone before, or any kind of card games that do have this damage that accumulates. But so if we are a 4 health unit and we take 3 damage, we get to stay at 1 health, and then if we take 1 more damage, our unit gets destroyed, kind of thing. So most Bandai card games don't do that. I think that's something that's more unique to Gundam, and it's a system that I'm really looking forward to using more of. And it's again, like, I played a lot of Hearthstone in the past, and it reminds me of that system, which I think is really cool, and it makes some kind of weird value trades at a lot of times. So lastly, so if you attack units, that's kind of the idea. We also do have attacking into shields. If you want to think about it, shields have 1 HP, so if you're able to deal 1 damage to a shield, you get to use their effect. There are triggers as we know it in One Piece, but they're called bursts in this game. There's not as many as there are in One Piece, and generally if you hit a pilot, you get to add it to your hand, and some commands get some abilities. Units, I haven't seen any with any of these burst effects either, but again, if you're used to like Digimon or One Piece, you're kind of used to what these kind of things do. So otherwise, if they don't have a burst, they go into your trash. So that is more like Digimon than it is One Piece. I play a lot of One Piece, and I'm so tempted to add these cards to my hand. There's so many times like, oh, if I had this card, I'd be in a way better spot. But I think the game is balanced around it too, but you don't get to add the card to your hand. You send it to your trash unless there's a burst that says otherwise. And then end of your step, you get to just any of the like end of turn things that activate. Anything that says, is passive until the end of the turn falls off. And then lastly, if you have 11 or more cards in your hand, you got to go down to 10, which I haven't really hit this hand limit before. I think that might change with more constructed play, but and some decks do draw a little bit more than others, but it is a 10 card limit at the end of your turn. So if you had more at the beginning, if you're able to draw to 12 or whatever, but then go down to 9 by the end of the turn, you're in a fine spot. So that's kind of like the crash course for it. Again, if you guys want to read these, it's to your own leisure for it as well. And I think this game is pretty basic to pick up in a lot of ways, especially if you play other Bandai card games. But this is a really good resource which you guys should use as well. So this is kind of the crash course for the rules, and let's go to more of the comprehensive rule set. All right, and here is the comprehensive rule set. As of recording, this is version 1.0. It was updated November 29th, 2024, and I do appreciate them putting this out, especially a little bit early, since we have seen some cards for this game in general. I highly recommend just reading through all of it if you are really interested in how this game works. It is 28 pages, but a lot of it is pretty basic, but needed to be said of how the game works in general. I do have a couple of rules I do want to kind of pinpoint that I think are impactful, are important. There might be a little bit of overlap from the previous section, but we're going to jump on into it. So some important things: we got the resource area. We have up to 15 spots in there, so it means that we have 5 EX resources and 10 of the regular resources, which we would have in our resource stack at the beginning of the game. So that's something that's just a little bit different, but I did want to kind of talk about. We also have the battle area. So the battle area, it's where we place our units and pilots. You can have up to 6 units at the same time, and it's a public area. So not knowing if it's a 6th area, you kind of know from the play sheet, but I did want to kind of mention that. And then also, lastly, we mentioned at the end of the last section, our hand is limited to 10 cards. If you have any number of cards in their hand, and the excess at the end. So again, if you have like 11 cards during the middle of your turn, but at the end of your turn you go down to 10, you're in a fine spot. But that's something that I think some people might get caught off guard with, but I've never had 10 cards in my hand based on pre-testing. So there it is. All right, something that's more unique I think to this game than other Bandai card games is the token. So this is something that was in Masters. I haven't seen it in Fusion World. Digimon has it sometimes. One Piece doesn't really have tokens, and then BSS does occasionally as well. But I do think this is something that some people, if you play a lot of One Piece, you're not really used to how tokens work. So they're treated as unit bases or resources based on whatever they are. They have the following rules, though. It's affected by the same manner as what they're pretending to be, so unit base or resource. A token placed as a unit can be paired with a pilot in the same manner as a normal unit. This was something I wasn't sure of before this came out, so this is a really good clarification. There are some times where I just need to boost up a token by a little bit more attack power, so being able to know I can do that is great. Has no color, which is fine. I don't think there's been any like specific color matching stuff either. Level and cost are both treated as 0, which I think is pretty important as well. And then also, when a token is placed in any location other than a battle area, resource area, or base section in their sealed area, it is removed from the game as a function of rules management. So if you bounce a token back to hand, it just goes away. This was an assumption, but I do appreciate that this is mentioned for this as well. So and then they kind of mentioned like bases, resources, and stuff. So EX base, EX resource are both tokens technically, right? That we get at the start of the game. So which we have some more knowledge for this. You should know that EX bases are 0 attack points and 3 HP. Place at the start of the game, and then EX resource are temporary pay costs. They do contribute to your level though, so that's kind of known from there. We also do have section 5.1, preparing the deck. It is 50 cards and 10 cards for the resource area, which should be known, but it is, again, just a straight 50 exactly. We also do have the startup mechanics as well, which we kind of went through a little bit, but we both draw 5 cards, which becomes our starting hand from there. And it's kind of jumping into more of a kind of the most important and kind of convoluted stuff. I think it's the action step. So 7.5, taking turns starting with the standby player, so the player whose turn it isn't. Players may activate action command cards and activate action effects, which will go to section 8. And then you keep going back and forth until you're done with it. So looking at it in a little bit more detail, we do have the action steps here. And it is based off of, so an action steps occurs after block and block step and during the end phase of I think this is during the battle phase. I don't think this should be end phase, but during an action step, taking turns starting with the standby player, players may activate action command cards and activate action effects. The standby player may choose to perform one of them or pass. And then also the activating an action command is the act of paying the cost. So you play the card, right? Next, the active player may choose one of the following. So even if, let's say I'm the attacking player, attack my opponent, they'd have nothing to play. I, as the attacker, can then use my own action card. So, but then once I use my own action card, it does give my opponent to use their own afterwards. So kind of back and forth. Reminds me a little bit of like the combo step and kind of like the counter step from Dragon Ball Masters. And also I know that BSS has kind of a similar thing between, but having this kind of like interaction in between is really, really nice. And if you look at the card pool that we have right now, there are a good amount of action effects that are really impactful for battles that can kind of change the tide of something winning or losing or being effective or not. So I think this is something that will be like the only kind of place where people stumble of like the order of operations for it. It's not something where kind of like One Piece, you have like these counters which you can only play defensively and you get to play them all at once. It would be something where like, oh, I play an action and then I wait for my opponent if they play an action. If they don't, I can play another one at the same time. But you have to go back and forth and you activate it and resolve it all at once. It's not like a chain where like I activate my action and then you get to play yours and we resolve backwards, kind of like the stack that I know a lot of people from Magic the Gathering are more useful. It is more so I activate my thing. It is the first thing. I fully activate it. Then it's your turn to use an action kind of thing. So it's not necessarily counter things, but it's more of activating an effect and then letting my opponent activate an effect. So I probably over explained that a little bit. If you guys want to look into it more, it's there on the page there. And then there's additionally just some kind of minor things. So battle area excess management. If a battle area is at its upper limit, when a unit card is played or a unit is being deployed by an effect, choose one unit already in the battle area and place it in its trash. Units placed in the trash due to this management are not considered destroyed. So this kind of like the idea that One Piece, where we have the same thing in One Piece. You can only play 5 characters in One Piece, and once you get to do that, you do have to kind of put one into your trash. There's no on KO effects, or usually any kind of effects like that are bypassed for it. This game it's 6 instead of 5, which apparently this game likes the number 6 a little bit more, I suppose. But I know that's going to be a question. It's kind of like the same thing for bases. You can play it on top of it, and you just remove the old thing, and that's kind of how that works. So that's helpful for it as well. And then lastly, there is a whole section based on keyword effects and keywords. If you have anything that you want to look into with the keywords, you can check this out here. I will go over Breach real quick because I've had a lot of people talk about this one in particular, and they kind of the wording for it is a little bit confusing, and it sounds like it's a little bit like piercing, but I do want to just kind of go over this one in particular. So Breach is a keyword effect that deals damage to an enemy's shield unit. When a unit with Breach destroys an enemy unit with battle damage, it activates on your turn. Breach, and then there's an amount, indicates when this unit's attack destroys an enemy unit with battle damage during your turn, it deals damage to the shield area of the opponent who owns the destroyed unit. So if I have Breach 3, it doesn't matter if my attack is like 1 or 7 or 5, whatever. If I destroy anything with my Gundam or with my unit, I get to do that damage to the shield area. So again, so if I have Breach 3, I deal 3 damage to the shield area. And the reason why it's worded that way is that it either means that I deal damage to the top shield, which means I do 1 damage altogether, because I'm only attacking into the 1 shield, or if they have a base in the area. And that's kind of where I think it's more important. If they have a base, I deal damage to the base instead. So if you have something like Breach 5 and all bases in this game that we've seen so far are 5 HP or less, it just means like I'm guaranteed to remove the shield or the base there as well. So I know a lot of people get a little bit confused with that, but think of it like I get to deal Breach X damage to the shield area, whether that means that's the base or I just get to hit into the shield. So if I have Breach 3 and you have no base, I'm not doing 3 damage across 3 shields. It's doing 3 damage to the top shield, which only has 1 HP. So it's a little bit confusing, but I hope that helps you guys a little bit. Something also that I saw this as well, but also, yeah, so dealing damage to the shield area deals damage to the enemy's base if there is one. Otherwise, it deals damage to the enemy's topmost shield. So it's only, again, 1. And then also, this one, I do appreciate the clarification. If it activates even when both units are destroyed in battle. So even if we trade, I still get my breach damage, which is really important too. So I think that is something important. Something that I didn't see though is that I don't know if we can win the game with this. It wasn't really clear. I could be combing through this incorrectly. If you guys know that, let me know. I'll have a little pin comment if that's the case. I don't think breach can win the game. I think you still have to like attack into your opponent's like just into your opponent altogether. So that could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong or not. But I think that's something that's I'm not 100% clear on. And then lastly, if a unit with breach is given a new copy of breach by some effect, rather than gaining multiple copies, the amount for the new is added to the original. So if I have something which breach 1 and I give it breach 2, it has 1 plus 2, so it has breach 3 at the end of it. So that's something that's I think is really helpful to know. It looks like most effects are like this. I saw this for repair and a couple other things where everything's kind of additive. So it's not something where it has 2 copies of breach 1, which would be probably a little bit broken, right? Because it could do like 2 damage. You have 1 copy of breach 2 instead. So I think that's something that's helpful. And there's a couple of other keywords. I hadn't really seen like first strike before. But based on other card games I've played, it makes sense kind of what it is. But it's just a really, really helpful section. So that's pretty much all it has. It does kind of have like how the keywords work and some of the abilities there. But I'll leave the rest for you guys as well. But this is a really good resource. I really appreciate them putting this out as well. And reading this helped me understand the game a lot more and kind of confirm some kind of like hunch rulings that I've had as well. So that's it for like the comprehensive rules. And let's go to the example decks. All right, and to wrap it up, we do have the recommended decks page that was on the play sheet that we looked at earlier, and I do appreciate them putting this in their little play sheet as well. Not only kind of has some example deck lists, which we'll go over some of our interpretations of those since we don't have all of the cards revealed yet as of recording for these, but they're also like these deck building pointers, which I think are just really handy and kind of goes over some insights from the people who designed the game and kind of their idea of what this game should look like, and I think that's really interesting, and it kind of differed from my initial interpretation of the game too, which I thought was really interesting. So real quick, again, I do have some deck lists for this. These are my own interpretations. You can find these linked in the description, and we'll talk about it in a moment, but they're there and there. So these are my 50. Also, the green and white one, we're only missing 1 card, but it's kind of like an impactful pilot for the Shenlong Gundam. So I don't have that deck list outright. We're just going to shift it to this one, but I will have that updated as soon as I can when we get there too. But again, if you want to look at those, you can find those linked in the description as well. But based on their deck building pointer section, has 50 cards up to 2 colors, which we knew. So we have our blue-white and our green-white deck, and then also up to 4 cards of the same name can be included. So pretty typical for Bandai card games to have 4 copies of the same number card, and that's pretty standard there. What I do find interesting is their recommendation for a good balance for deck building. So they recommend 25 to 28 unit cards, 6 to 8 pilot cards, 8 to 10 command cards, and then 4 to 6 base cards as well. And the pilots look like a little bit slim, but I also think that there are the hybrid commands. So these are commands that also can function as pilots too. So they don't mention those as much in this, but I do think that ups our pilot count quite a bit. But generally, I was looking around 10 myself when looking at pilots, but including like the hybrid cards as well. I think the other thing is that the base cards I had a little bit on the higher side from like 6 to 8. There's some really good bases in this game, but I also feel like they can be stuck in your hand at times too. So I do understand like why that's only at 4 to 6, but over half your deck as unit cards, I think is understood for how this game works too, because you really are unit dependent. But it's really interesting to see that as well. The other thing is like how low of a curve they really recommend for this game too. So they recommend including 16 to 20 units that can that are level 3 or lower. That will help your opening turns play more smoothly, which we got kind of like when the first wave of cards were released, we didn't get any cards that were like level 1, 2, or 3, which means that like our first games were just kind of like getting to the late game pretty consistently, right? But seeing this, more lower level cards, I'm sure we're going to get more in the future too, and see how low level shifted this game is compared to what I've been seeing previously is additionally really interesting to see that as well. So they do have that. They do recommend having some link requirements in unit cards and actions, but that's kind of their insight for it there. So the 2 decks they have are a blue-white mid-range deck. So this is more of just getting a lot of value from playing your low units during the opening turns. Mid-game, they try to get a Gundam and Amaru or just any kind of link to be able to get some immediate value. They don't have like a lot of different links for it, but we'll kind of talk about that as well. In the late game, they want to just say like you have a lot of ways to make units as well as to just get more card advantage, so you can kind of out-resource your opponent compared to something that's like a little bit more aggressive. So that's really handy. So if you're able to just get your good mid-range abilities, get some good clears on some units, you can kind of outvalue your opponent, especially since we have like the repair keyword and everything else. And we have the green-white ramp deck, and again, we do have 48 of these, but the big issue with this is that We don't have the Wu Fei, which is kind of important for the Shenlong Gundam, which is the only card they ran at 4 copies in this deck. So I did change that from my build to not have that at all. But the kind of idea for this is to play our level 4 units, so we have some ways to get some additional EX resources and resources, which is really handy. Mid game is to get some like really chunky bodies that are hard for your opponent to interact with, and then late game we have Wing Gundam with Hero, which this is already like known to be really strong. Wing Gundam is great with Hero, being able to be a 7/7 that attacks immediately and it has Breach 5. You just get so much value, and your opponent's going to have a hard time like effectively removing that a lot of the time. So I do think that is a good like late game kind of idea for the deck as well. So jumping into the decks as well, we do have my version of like blue and white. So we're running 6 bases. Side 7, I don't like this one as much, but sometimes you can use this to be able to get like a rest and get like 1 extra HP every turn, which can be helpful. Also something you can just play on turn 1, which is really nice if you want to kind of upgrade your EX base. We do also have a good amount of our low level units. So we do have like the GM, which is level 2. We have the Strike Dagger, so we have 3 copies of that. We have the Loto, which was recently released or kind of previewed as well. It's just a 2/2 that lets you just link very easily with the Earth Federation trait, which we have quite a few of those. And then we also have Gun Cannon, which is our level 3. So this is like a small costed body. So repair 1 when paired, give up to 1 enemy unit with 2 or less HP to rest it, and then you have anything with white base team, which can mean the Amaru. We also have the Kai's Resolve here, so this also kind of counts towards that, which is really nice. We have our Gundams here, which are bumping up to the Gundams with this one. I think this is like one of the better cards in this game, especially for like a mid-range deck. So they were only running 1 copy of it, and I think like they were kind of like constrained from like more of a budget reason. So like an 1 LR, and this might actually just be like the demo decks that we get in the future for it too. So don't want to just give out like 4 of this guy, but I do think that kind of shows what this deck looks like in its own way. And then our other top end, we have like the Ale Strike Gundam being able to be a blocker. And I've been waiting for like the Kira pilot to be released. This was just recently shown off for the first time a couple weeks ago. So being able to, which was, we saw this card way late. Like this was like one of the first cards we saw, but we never saw what the Kira looks like. So being able to have this is great. Being able to give something minus AP2 during this turn, and then also kind of conversely, we saw this Lynx pilot. Like this is one of the first cards they revealed ever, and then we just never saw a Link unit for it. So being able to have this unicorn mode is really nice. Being able to have like a boost there, being able to get a card draw. So this becomes a 6/5, and then also during pair destroyed, if this is a Link unit, return its paired pilot to its owner's hand, and you can discard 1. So it just means like you get to draw again too, which is really nice. So in general, I think this does get a lot of value throughout the game. We do have like this good low end, and then we have like this kind of like medium end to kind of jump into. But I do like the blue and white kind of mix for it, and there's some really good value for it as well. And then jumping into the green and white deck, I still think like Wing Gundam is like one of the best cards in this game. It's a real good closer, especially again, it's a 4/5 with the hero. You're able to turn this into a 7/7, and then it gets to attack anything, even if it's active, and then also it has Breach 5. So it does really everything you want to do late game, which is really, really strong. But mostly like kind of goes over some new cards that were kind of revealed most recently, which is most of the other kind of characters from the Wing Gundam universe. One card that I think is also really nice is like we saw like this Sandrock forever during the kind of first wave of cards, but we didn't know what the corpse cards look like. So it's just a 2/2, which is just a fine like a 2 level 2 cost 2 3/2. Sorry, there's so many different cost numbers for this one, but being able to play this card out I think is really great for free and get some kind of tempo for you. We have the Zaku 2, which becomes a 3/2 on attack, which can help you trade into some bigger items as well. And then we do also have the Heavy Arm. So this is during pair, this unit gets a Breach 3 effect, which you get to use with Troa, which lets you get a 5/3, and then also choose one of your units that gains Breach 3 for the turn. This is a main effect. So either way, like you get these Breach effects as well. And kind of mentioned as previously too, if this is already paired and then you have this additional Breach +3, this becomes Breach 6, which can get rid of some bases if you need to. So that's some really good value, I think, as well. We have some ways to ramp. I like this card less and less the more I see it, but being able to get a card that ramps is really great. We have Overflowing Affection at 4 copies, which help us go through our deck a little bit more and helps us put more cards into our trash, so we can use the command requirement for this Gundam Aerial, but also this Michaelis here. So if you have 4 or more command cards in your trash, this gets +1 AP and +1 HP, so it becomes a 4/4. And then if you have a 1/1 underneath it, you can make it a 5/6 with like this Mercury. So like this Silhouetta is really great, especially since it has the Academy tag. So you get to gain the you get attack the turn, you get to play with it. So I think this is really great. I also like this Dartle Blade or Balde. Choose one enemy unit with 1 HP, return it to its owner's hand. There's a lot of times where I'm like, man, I just need like 1 more damage to something and I'm in a good spot, but I can't quite get there. So this being able to get there too is great, and it has the Academy trait. So Silhouetta is able to make it a 5/4, which is really handy too. So in general, I think this is a build to work with. It's hard to know like how like low end you have to actually make these decks without more testing and more gameplay with it, but it's been really fun to look at these decks, especially with the designers in mind. The only other cards, like, I think this is like one of the best bases in the game, and maybe I'm just bad and maybe I don't know how to play this game, but a base that plays a unit, it just seems really good, even if it's a unit in rest. Like, it just trades really well into a lot of things. So I've been playing a lot of this card. This could just be a bad card, it could be a trap, but I've been really, really liking it. I think it's really, really strong. So anyways, I think this is another deck you guys can check out. And again, you can find them in the description. If you want proxies, just press the gear, press the proxies button. It should make a PDF, and you can make a printable version of the deck that you want to build too. So that's going to be it though for me. I hope you guys did enjoy these. I am really looking forward to the Gundam card game, and we'll have more content. The website will be continued to update with the new cards that we get, and I'm looking forward to the beta release as well. So that's going to be it. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.